players in the world and their best plays. It's sports on 32 FM 94.9. After the tactics comes the play.
What's he going to do? Oh!
After the play comes the goal.
Could be the match winner from Lionel Messi. Ronaldo! Aguero, they'll do it. It's a terrific goal.
After the goal comes the uproar. It's sports on 32 FM 94.9.
All right, great afternoon. Let's continue the business once again on today's edition of the show Scoreboard Reloaded, right on 32 FM 94.9. On the show this afternoon, we take a look at the qualified teams into the round of 16 and also the playoffs of the league phase of the UEFA Champions League. Outside the UEFA Champions League, we know the second tier of European club competition is also set to go down today, the deciding games. Well, we'll talk about the UEFA Europa League. The Nigeria Premier Football League games are set to go down later today as well. There were games that went down yesterday, but later today, we would have Shooting Stars set to be in action in about 27 minutes from now. They'll be in action against Ikorodu City there in Lagos State. Well, we talk about a tennis story on the show this afternoon, where, of course, we have the first finalist for this year's major Grand Slam, the first for the year 2026. That's talking about Aryna Sabalenka against Elena Rybakina, up against each other in the finals of the Australian Open. But for one woman, it has been all about the heroics for her since the year 2023. Now she is into her fourth consecutive Australian Open finals. Her name is Aryna Sabalenka, the world number one for a reason. But on the show this afternoon, we have BIOLA Solis-Chukwu, who joined us just last week on the show to discuss about the early stages of the Australian Open. Now, day 12 of the Australian Open, reaching the business end of the competition. We have once again joining us on the show as we have those heavyweight games set to go down in the early hours of tomorrow, also between Carlos Alcaraz and Alexander Zverev. We would also have Novak Djokovic against Yannick Sinner in the men's semi-finals. But today, it was the semi-finals of the women's game we had. But one thing, and definitely I hold on to, in these two players who are in the finals, and their record en route to the finals, is that they didn't drop a set. I have BIOLA joining me on the show this afternoon. Good afternoon, BIOLA Solis-Chukwu.
Hi, good afternoon, Sammy. It's good to be on the show once again.
Well, definitely. I spoke about the heroics of both Aryna Sabalenka and Elena Rybakina getting to the finals of the Australian Open without dropping a set.
Yes, it's been really competitive at the Australian Open, but competitive when you look at the different matches on paper. But most of the matches have been ending in straight sets right from the round of 16. And then Rybakina and Sabalenka reaching the finals without dropping a set is pretty good. All the women who reached the semi-finals actually hadn't dropped a set up to that point. So right now we're in the final and the women still haven't dropped a set. It's just shows how strong Sabalenka is as a world number one, how much she loves Australia. She loves Australia so much. Like you mentioned, she's in this final for the fourth consecutive year. Just before the Australian Open, she won a title in Australia. She did the same thing last year, won a title in Australia before reaching the final of the Australian Open. Basically did the same thing the previous year as well. So she loves playing in Australia. And she's world number one for a reason, like you mentioned. She's truly dominating the tour at the moment, and she absolutely deserves to be in the final. For Rybakina, I am not surprised at all. You know, in the last few months before the off season, she was really one of the best players in the world. Won the WTA finals really convincingly, beating Sabalenka in that final. So yeah, she deserves to be here. She's worked so hard over the years. You know, we know she won Wimbledon in 2022. She came close again to win another Grand Slam at the 2023 Australian Open, but this since Sabalenka beat her, so this is a rematch of that match.
Well, being a rematch, well, now for Aryna Sabalenka, and she is also the second woman in the history of the Australian Open to be in 4 consecutive Australian Open finals after Martina Hingis. Well, maybe many of us don't know Martina Hingis, but we know if we go back into the archives of what she did in the interesting world of tennis. But now, let's talk about how these ladies that have performed and the rising stars that we've seen in the competition. Now, for Aryna Sabalenka, in a match after defeating that Ivajovich, she said we shouldn't mind the competitors, those are ladies. We shouldn't mind their age, that it was a tough match. And she played against the Jovic, she played against the Mboko, she played against the Potapova, Bai, and the Rakatumanga. That's talking about Aryna Sabalenka. But for Rebekina, in the other hand, she defeated that's Jessica Pegula, who out the defending champion. She defeated Iga Swiatek. She defeated Mertens. She defeated Valentova, Gracheva, and Juvan. So you look at the rankings of all of these players they played against. Do you think this was also somewhat in the favor of Aryna Sabalenka, getting into the finals of the Australian Open?
To be honest, looking at it generally, I think Sabalenka's part of the draw was relatively easy, to be honest, and it's not the first time she's had an easy side of the draw. On the other side, you know, we had the Pegulas, the Iga Swiatek. It seems like the other side of the draw was mostly packed. Like you mentioned, in the first round, she had Rakatomanga Rajaona, she had Bai, Potapova. That's all just looked like matches that she would certainly get through. For Pegula, the likes of Pegula, the likes of Iga Swiatek, they also had some really tough draws when you look at who they faced right from the first round. For instance, Iga Swiatek, I felt like she had one of the most tricky draws, especially for a world number 2, because facing the qualifier in the first round, she got one of the most difficult qualifiers she could get, Yuan Yue, facing a very tricky, I think, Mari Buskova in the second round. Then I think she was the only top player who was facing a fellow seeded player in the third round. That was Anna Kalinskaya. So yeah, I think while Aryna Sabalenka's draw has been easy, at the end of the day, what you have to do is simply win your matches. There are some players who face, you know, lower ranked players and get upsets. Upsets happen in tennis. So what really matters is winning beating whoever you play. And that's what really matters, to be honest.
Now, talking about Elena Rybakina, the name seems so interwoven. But talking about Elena Rybakina now, for our performance in the last 6 months, it has been somewhat of a great one. And could this be also the reason or the cause of having Stefano Volkov back into her ranks? So remember, Volkov coached her from 2019 to 2024, and then departed ways, but started late 2025 to also coach Elena Rybakina.
Well, I think coaching and whoever coaches you is really important. But I think Rybakina was still doing decent without Volkov. But, you know, Volkov returned. She won a couple of titles even before winning the WTA finals. Winning those titles were actually really important for her qualifying for the WTA finals in the first place. I think she was the last person to qualify, and then she went on to win the title. So, yes, Volkov has been coaching her for years. They are, you know, very used to each other. There has been some controversy surrounding them, surrounding the way he treats her and all. That has passed now. He was banned for a bit. And, you know, those are some weird off-court issues. But what matters right now is that on-court is working for Rybakina. And, you know, she's reached another Grand Slam final, and the coaching is working. How it's going off court, we really do not know. The WTA hasn't said anything about whether they have noticed if Vukov is still treating her the same way, what led to his ban in the first place. But on court, we are seeing that the Vukov and Rybakina partnership is working.
All right, before we talk about the men's semi-finals are set to go down in the early hours of tomorrow, and that interview that was granted also to the greatest, we'll call her the greatest women's tennis player, Serena Williams. Let's take a listen to the words of Aryna Sabalenka and that's Elena Rybakina speaking about their victory in the early hours of today.
Oh, I don't know. I'm sensitive right now. I think she would be just super proud that, yeah, I was able to make it here. It just, back. I would never think that I would be able to, first of all, make it to the top 10, and secondly, to be that consistent and be able to play on such a big arenas in front of you all and feel all the support. It's just a dream life, and every day I'm grateful for everything I have. And I mean, I don't know. I hope she would be proud of me.
Well, that was the question. The response from the question posed to Aryna Sabalenka: how proud would her 10-year-old self be to be in a fourth straight Australian Open? That's a finals. Now, let's take a listen to the words of Aryna Rybakina after defeating Jessica Pegula, whom I think is just not so fair to see her lose out to the hands of Rybakina in the semi-finals in the early hours of today. That's because of the opponents in which she has played against. Outing the defending champion and also defeating maybe some other great players en route to the semi-finals. Let's take a listen to the words of Elena Rybakina.
Well, I don't think it was a little bit for my team. It was really, really stressful, and for me also. I had some epic tiebreak here a couple years ago. I lost it. I think it was the longest woman played, and a little flashback came, But yeah, I'm super happy that in the end it turned my way, and looking forward to play on Saturday.
She's looking forward to that game on Saturday. Like I mentioned, for Pegula, the reason why I said maybe just not so unfair, she defeated Anmanda Anisimova, Madison Keys, Selemkova, Kessler, and Zakharova. That's why I said it's just not unfair to see her lose to the hands of Rybakina.
Yeah, it definitely isn't. Rybakina was simply the better player today. She's also been the better player all tournaments as well. Watching that match, I think she started really slowly. That's Pegula. Her body language was also kind of off, and I think that was one of the places where she lost it. So it was good to see her, bring some competition into the match towards the end stage. She broke as Rybakina was serving for the match. Also put up a really competitive second set tiebreak as well. So I think she should be proud of her run, proud of how far she's come. Jessica Pegula was struggling to reach Grand Slam semi-finals for years. She finally broke through a couple of years ago, and then she has reached 3 Grand Slam semi-finals now. It counts. She's truly also one of the best players in the world, a solid, consistent top 10 player. Whether she will go on to win a slam at some point or not, I really don't know, but she's really consistent. She's done so well for herself. She seems to be even playing her best in her 30s. She turned 30 last year or so. I think she should be proud of her run, really. I just don't think there was any player that was going to be beating Elena Rybakina today. All
right, so let's move away from that before the men's game. Before I also get your thought, the words of Serena Williams.
I'm just having fun and enjoying my life right now.
Okay, but that's not a yes or a no.
That's not a yes or a no. I don't know. I'm just going to see what happens.
That's a maybe to me.
That's not a maybe.
Well, I'll see what happens. It's not a no.
I have 2 kids. I'm a full-time stay-at-home. When I filled out the form the other day, occupation.
Okay.
Housewife.
Okay.
I think it's as important as that. Housewife. BIOLA, Serena Williams, she was asked if she was going to return back to the court to play tennis.
Yeah, the reason why she was asked this is because towards the end of last season, or was it at the start of this season, we saw that she was included in the testing pool for American players. That's players that will be tested, during anti-doping and all of that. And I don't believe that a player would submit themselves to that rigorous, almost annoying, invasive process if they are not coming back or actively playing. I know he probably doesn't want to announce it yet, but I believe she's coming back for some reason. Let me tell you what I suspect, SAMIES. I suspect her sister Venus Williams is going to announce her retirement this year, probably at the US Open. So I think Serena is probably returning to play doubles for the last time with her. It might be some conspiracy theory, something in
I think we need to keep this. We need to keep this part. We'll keep it. We'll keep it. Yeah.
But I suspect that's what's happening. Honestly, I don't see Serena coming and saying she wants to play active singles anymore. To be honest, I don't see why people should even be excited about that. Leave the past in the past. We all know Serena Williams is the greatest of all time. We enjoyed her time on court for many years, but we all have to move on. Every generation has its own greats, and I think women's tennis is doing great as it is at the moment. We do not, absolutely not, need a Serena Williams right now. So I know or believe that is what she's coming for, to play doubles with her sister one more time. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We will keep this. So, from what BIOLA said, each generation, they have their own array of stars. Now, we are in that generation where we are seeing Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner. Later tomorrow, we would see Carlos Alcaraz face off against Alexander Zverev in the first semi-finals for the Australian Open, and then Novak Djokovic face off against Jannik Sinner. How primed are you for this encounter tomorrow? I know the biggest might be Novak Djokovic against Jannik Sinner, and I remember in 2024, both played against each other, and it was that victory for Jannik Sinner. And the last time Novak last won against Sinner was in the year 2023.
Yes, this is exciting. Just looking at the matches, the blockbuster semi-finals we have tomorrow. Carlos Alcaraz versus Alexander Zverev. These guys know each other so well. They seem to play a lot, especially in Grand Slam quarterfinals. They also faced each other at the Roland Garros final a couple of years ago. So these are two players that I feel are some of the best at this tournament so far. Alexander Zverev, we all know, he's been trying to cross that hurdle to finally claim his first Grand Slam title. He's been serving impeccably, really, at this tournament. Carlos Alcaraz has been one of his obstacles in the last few years. Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner, of course. So he would need to get through that hurdle again to reach the final. But Carlos Alcaraz is just Carlos Alcaraz. He's also really hungry to reach the final and win the career slam. This is the only slam he hasn't won. I honestly can't predict this, but I believe it's going to be one of the best matches of the tournament so far. Novak Djokovic versus Jannik Sinner. Novak Djokovic was so fortunate, so lucky to get here. He was 2 sets to love down against Lorenzo Musetti, but Musetti unfortunately got injured and retired from the match in the 3rd set. So he's really lucky to be here. The good thing is that he goes into this final kind of fresh, because he also didn't even play his round of 16 match, because his opponent, Jakub Mensik, also didn't play due to injury. So he had that walkover, then didn't get to play a full match against Lorenzo Musetti. So he's pretty fresh. But he's also playing against a Jannik Sinner that has also been an obstacle for him, one of the best players in the world at the moment. It's going to be feisty out there in Melbourne tomorrow, and I guess we should just expect really good matches, is all, whoever wins.
All right, just as BIOLA said, we have the top 4 set to participate in the semi-finals of the Australian Open in the men's game. Alcaraz, Sinner, Zverev, and Djokovic. Now, before I let you leave, BIOLA, I know it will be next week before we have another conversation. But in the finals, Sabalenka against Rybakina, what do you think? What do you see coming out victorious?
Honestly, this is one of those matches that can swing either way. If we look back, they played a final at the same Australian Open in 2023, and it was one of the best matches of this decade. So I'm expecting 3 sets, very competitive match, but I think Sabalenka will take it again. This is okay. Let me tell you this. My heart says Rybakina simply because I feel she's overdue for a second Grand Slam title. But my head says Aryna Sabalenka because she's simply Aryna Sabalenka and she's the best in the world and she loves this stage. So yeah, that's where I am. My heart says one thing, my head says another.
Expect a message from me, whichever way the result actually goes.
I know.
But what about in the semi-finals of the men's game? Sinner against Alcaraz in the finals? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think it will be a Sin Caras final again. We seem to be getting a lot of that now.
All right, so that's the generation in which we live in, and we are enjoying what we talk about tennis. Thank you so much, BIOLA, for joining us on the show this afternoon.
Thank you for having me as always.
All right, then we discussed about the first major Grand Slam for the year 2026, which is the Australian Open. Now, let's talk about the UEFA Champions League, where we had the games that go down yesterday, and about the games that went down, it's also the bid for qualifiers into the playoffs and also the round of 16 proper of the UEFA Champions League. You take a look at the standing of these sides who are through into the next round of the UEFA Champions League. Well, I tell you that for 8 teams, they picked up the tickets automatically to be in the round of 16. Arsenal, Bayern Munich, Liverpool, Tottenham, Barcelona, Chelsea, Sporting, Manchester City. And those teams are set to slug it out in the playoffs later next month. Real Madrid, Inter, PSG, Newcastle, Juventus, Atletico de Madrid, Atlanta, Bayer Leverkusen. We also have Borussia Dortmund, Olympiacos. We have Club Brugge, Galatasaray, Monaco, Karabag, Bodo Glimt, Benfica. These are the sides that are set to play in the playoffs of the UEFA Champions League. But also later today, we would have games that go down in the UEFA Europa League, and also it will decide that those teams who would be in the round of 16 of the competition. Outside the round of 16, those who also will be playing in the playoffs of that's the UEFA Europa League. So you take a look at the only 2 sides who have secured automatic qualification, but it's not all about these 2 sides as well. Well, maybe we'll see the 2 sides, Lyon and Aston Villa. These are the only 2 sides. But left to be played for from that's the 9th position down to that's talking about the 32nd position on the standing of the UEFA Europa League. But Dolakbo, how excited were you with the UEFA Champions League games that went down yesterday? I heard you talking about some white paper check that it didn't go well for many people.
Well, good afternoon, SAMIES, and good afternoon to everyone who has joined us on the show this afternoon. It was not the best of days for the White Paper Boys yesterday. I think many people just went down there to waste their money. But then, the Court of Appeal is here today in the UEFA Europa League, but that is not where we are going today. We are going somewhere else entirely now. But now, for me personally, I think I enjoyed myself yesterday night. The games yesterday were so interesting to see. There were some centers that were not. They didn't hit the expectations I expected them to hit.
But I think I had a conversation with you yesterday that in almost all the games we would see yesterday, we would have at least.
Yeah!
At least.
We were talking about it there in the office earlier yesterday, and then that happened. We talked about having.
And we only saw 3 centers or 4 centers that didn't give us more than
1 goal. And it's a bit good. I think for everyone who followed game of football, they would enjoy themselves yesterday from different centers. The Benfica game was the one that at the end of the day was the biggest one, when the goalkeeper from Benfica, the 24-year-old, scored his first career goal, and he scored it against Real Madrid. At that time, that goal took Benfica to the playoff round. That goal knocked out Olympique Marseille, and that goal as well was the goal that took Manchester City to the top 8. So the goal that was scored for Benfica that helped 2 other teams was quite good to see. And for Real Madrid, Alvaro Arbeloa, I think question marks about what he has done so far since he joined this Real Madrid team. You expect them to beat Benfica. With all due respect to Jose Mourinho's Benfica, after he was brought in, I really didn't expect him to turn things around that quickly. But then he was able to do that. It changed everything for Real Madrid and everything for Benfica. And at the end of the day, they got to the playoff round, and he might just get past there and get to the round of 16. Who knows? And also the game that was highly anticipated between Newcastle United and Paris Saint-Germain in Paris didn't end the way many people would have expected it to end. Newcastle so united. 3 games in a row against Paris Saint-Germain, and they didn't lose in any of those games. Last time out, it ended in a draw when they went to Paris, and yesterday again, it was another draw in a game they could have won if Harvey Barnes have scored that goal he got. The big chance he had 3 minutes to the end of the game. I still don't understand why he didn't convert that. But then 1-1 draw, and Paris Saint-Germain again will be playing in the playoff just like they did last season when they won the competition. But this season they finished higher, they finished 12th instead of finishing 15th like they did last season. And they might just be getting almost similar draw to what they got last season, because at the moment they might be playing Monaco. If you remember last season, it was against the Boest that they played in the UEFA Champions League and they knocked them out. This season as well, they have, when the draw will go on tomorrow, they'll likely face Karabakh, the side from Azerbaijan, or they face Monaco, another team from France. So maybe Luis Enrique has just had the templates of ways of getting to win the UEFA Champions League. For Newcastle United, the only side from England not to make the top 8, but you have to give kudos and respect to what Eddie Howe had done for this side from England. They have been performing really well in the Champions League. For them to perform this way, don't forget they've played against Paris Saint-Germain, they played against Barcelona in this year's UEFA Champions League, and they were still able to finish in the top 11, in the top 13. It's good for them. They performed well, and this time around, they didn't get knocked out in the group stage or in the league phase that they did in the 2023 UEFA Champions League. They are in the knockout phase now. They just need to qualify from the league phase, and we see them perform well.
Now, quickly, Dolapo, before we leave, now we've discussed about the UEFA Champions League and the UEFA Europa League. Probably will come tomorrow to discuss about those precedents from the games set to go down later today. But in the Nigeria Premier Football League, for Ibadan football lovers, Shooting Stars are away from home, are playing against the Ikorodu City there in Lagos. And now, in their last 3 games, it has not been good for Shooting Stars. Will today be a different encounter, a different ball game when they face off against each other by 4 p.m. just 3 minutes from now?
Well, maybe Shooting is playing against their academy, because we know what has transpired between Ikorodu City and Shooting Stars over the last 2 years now, getting their players, getting their coach, getting their sporting director. But now they play against each other. Ikorodu City have been very good at home this season in the league. They are yet to lose a single game at home this season. Although I think some weeks ago they drew against Castina United or someone, a goalless draw. Shooting Stars have been one of those teams that have been good away from home in the league this season. I think they've gotten 9 points away from home in the league this season. That is quite impressive for someone who plays in the Nigerian league. But today I expect Shooting Stars to go there. I don't really see them getting all 3 points. The best they can get is a point, which I don't actually see. I expect Ikorodu City to get all 3 points. Warri Wolves
will be up against the Remo Stars, Kun Kalifata against the Kwara United, Ikorodu City against Shooting Stars, Bendel Insurance against the Barrow Football Club. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined us on today's edition of the show. We'll come your way again tomorrow. That's a Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Counting down to the end of the month. I am SAMIES, your sports captain. I've done this alongside Dolapo. Do enjoy the rest of the day, and bye for now.